my self-esteem was dinged all day long. And so that took a lot on me. So that really impacted me in ways of depression and like things that I don't even want to talk about because I don't want to for anybody else out there. But I was a very depressed little kid, like 8, 9, 10 years old, 11 years old. Because the advocacy of my parents would happen every year. Then at first I would get an accommodation and then they lost interest. And then around 8th grade, I started to act up a little bit. I spent most of the year in the bathroom because when a stuttering dyslexic has to read out loud, where are they going to go? They have to go to the bathroom.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Lion. And I believe that when the world challenges you, that is your cue to go deep within yourself, to tap more deeply into your greatness. I believe that people's unkindness and criticism is a way for us to reinvent ourselves while simultaneously becoming more deeply and authentically ourselves. This can be a long, arduous, and solo journey. However, our guest today is a testament of the greatness that can follow should you choose the tough road of forging your own unique path. I am so grateful to Nina G for making the time to share her light with us. One thing that we know for a fact is that life inadvertently will change, and it will not be our choice. And, when that happens, we will be forced to grapple with it, be it disease, loss of a job, family circumstance, or whatnot. And building a practice around stepping out of our comfort zone intentionally can really help us build the muscles of resilience to help us transcend our human suffering as a result of the ease that we might be able to feel through a practice, dare I say a devotional practice, of stepping out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that because the idea to adapt is one that is a value of the disability community, and a lot of times able-bodied people, they don't want to talk about a disability experience because we're one of the few minority groups that you could join at any time. So people don't want to be reminded of their vulnerabilities. So, but if you live long enough, you're going to get there. You're going to become one of us, like the movie says, like the movie Freak says. So it's important to know and to practice that adaptation throughout your life because you're going to need it. And I think that resiliency kind of builds that. So I'm just happy to be here and talking about that. And we haven't even said what my disability is yet, but I know you're going to get to it.
Yes. And thank you so much for sharing that. I know we were talking about this earlier, but I think it's so valuable for all of us to recognize that really it's only a matter of time as our life naturally transforms that we will grapple with limitations that we previously didn't have. And developing an appreciation and celebration of those amongst us like Nina G who are special, who have who've grown up with these disabilities, and witnessing how rich their existence is can help us, sort of not suffer as much and realize how, this natural transformation of life and better be emotionally, mentally, spiritually prepared for life's natural, turns, if you will. All right. So
Appreciate
with
it.
that, I would love to take a moment to introduce you. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to San Francisco's first female stuttering comedian, Nina G. She was born in Alameda, California. Alameda is, part of the San Francisco metro area. I'm a big fan. If you've never been, the next time you're in San Francisco, do make the time to explore. Um, she is a author who has published multiple books, as well as an international speaker with speaking engagements in places like Iceland and Canada. And she's so special because not only is she a stutterer, but she also has dyslexia. And Nina likes to say that we're not allowed to feel bad for her for being a stutterer and having dyslexia, but we definitely are allowed to feel bad for her being subjugated to going through Catholic school at a young age.
In the 19
And
note in the 1980s.
in the 1980s, wow. Um, she was first diagnosed with a learning disability back in the third grade. And one thing that's very interesting about Nina G's background is that she is fourth generation disabled. So she comes from a family as a result that understands, some of these limitations. And I presume that it was somewhat of a boon for her to sort of have the life experience that she did, being surrounded by people who could sort of resonate deeply with her experience.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. And thank you for the introduction. Where would you like to start?
Yes, so I would love to begin by having you paint us a picture of your childhood, your school life, and living with stuttering and dyslexia.
So, when you have a non-apparent disability, you don't know you're disabled until you got to do that thing that the disability impacts. And so for dyslexia, it's a little bit weird because it only shows up once you're well into school. And in the United States, they spend the first couple years learning to read. And then in third grade, you have to read to learn. So that's a time when a lot of us are diagnosed with dyslexia because you have to read your science book, you have to read your history book in order to learn. And that's where we get stuck. And that's where we oftentimes get referred to get diagnosed. So that was part of my story there. Now, with the stutter, well, let me start again with the dyslexia. There were signs earlier on, because when I was when I was like 2 or 3, when I asked my mom for a chicken, I would make this sound, and for cheese, I would do. And my parents were like, maybe chirping isn't on the developmental milestone list. My child is chirping. And so my dad, having had a hard of hearing experience throughout his family, because he is hard of hearing, his dad was hard of hearing, and my grandfather's mom was hard of hearing. So this wasn't anything new to them. And so they brought me to Children's Hospital in Oakland. They got me assessed. I had speech therapy there with a wonderful woman named Elaine, who even going into my adulthood, I still have a relationship with. We've hosted stuttering parties together, which is weird because her husband stutters, and so he got involved with the stuttering community in the 80s, and then I eventually joined that community, and then and so it's very weird to have this woman who knew me when I was 2.5 still involved in my life. I talked to her daughter on Instagram. Anyway, just very strange how all of that works out. Anyway, started in speech when I was 8, and it was for central auditory processing issues. And what that means, the best way that I can explain it, and some of your younger viewers may not understand, but it's like you hear Charlie Brown's teacher. So it goes wah, 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 wah. And that's why I woke up extra early, and that's why I have my Diet Coke, because it still impacts me, especially in the morning. So because I may not hear things very clearly. And if you don't hear things clearly, when you hear wah, 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 you're going to say wah, 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 because you copy what you hear. And so
especially as a child.
Exactly. And so that explained the chirping to some extent. So I was adapting there. But then if you have problems processing language, dyslexia is a language processing issue. So that. And then around 7 or 8 years old, I also started to stutter. It became more of an issue in 3rd grade, but I also remember one of my earliest memories. Like, it's weird when you ask someone who stutters, like, what's your first memory of stuttering? For me, it wasn't trying to get out the word. It was other people's reaction. And other reaction to my speech is the cornerstone of my stand-up comedy. So it's very interesting that this is something I've dealt with my entire life. I remember in 2nd grade, every month there would be a mass that the whole school went to, being a Catholic school, and they would have someone read a prayer, like a dedication or a petition, to like, God, please bless, blah, 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 blah. And so it would be from like 2nd grade on, 1st grade on. So there'd be 8 of these. And so the teacher said, is there anybody here who hasn't read in the church yet? And I raised my hand, it being May. I was like, I haven't yet. And the teacher looked over me and chose the kid behind me. And she looked at me and she was like, not her. And I feel that, like, I don't know if I was stuttering then, but I knew I wasn't picked because of how I talked or how I read. I don't know what it was. So to me, that was kind of the first time. And I feel like she may have been trying to protect me by putting me on the stage. Didn't really help me.
Yeah.
So that to me is my earliest memory of that. And I assume that I started to stutter around that time, but I didn't get into speech for the stutter until I was 8.
So, thank you so much for sharing the story of being looked over by your teacher. You know, I can't imagine sort of what it must have been like for you to have experienced that. And I think in the vein of this conversation, I think it's very relevant to be curious about, you know, if you could better help us understand, starting at that stage and going forward, the ways in which your self-esteem, which is connected to your self-worth, how that was impacted, you know.
So yeah, so in third grade,
Mm-hmm.
when I was diagnosed with dyslexia, my parents came to the school and they advocated. My dad, being hard of hearing, he already had that experience. My mom, her mom had polio. And so my grandma lived with post polio syndrome. So my mom had that experience. And they were, kind of like this working class thing of, oh, you got this thing, you deal with it. Like, like that's it. Like, it's just black and white, and it's just there. And so when they got the information that I had dyslexia and what that meant, my mom went to this school, my dad went to the school. It was like, okay, she needs these things. And one of the accommodations, because you get an accommodation, if you are disabled and it impacts you in the environment, one of those accommodations was that on non-spelling things, tests, that I would have them done orally, or I would have them done in a different way. And I remember the first time that I had an accommodation, it was so clear to me, and I remember it so well. It was the map of California, and I had to put on there where Sacramento, the capital, was, where Los Angeles was, where rivers were, all of that. And I didn't have, and so other kids had to spell everything right. I had the test done orally, and I was the first one done. It was the first time in my life I had ever finished classwork before anybody else. And I was like, Sacramento's here, LA's here, blah, 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 blah. And I got an A on it. She put it on the board. I was the first one to have it on the board. I was like, oh, this accommodation thing is so great. This is going to work out wonderful. And then I don't remember being accommodated after that. And so it was a very bittersweet thing, that I was like, oh, I can do the work, but they're not allowing me to show that. So that was very difficult. And the thing in school, when you have dyslexia, it's really hard because your job is school, and you have something that interferes in that, or maybe not, like, we really have to look at the environment and not at the person's disability. Because is it the person's fault that they use a wheelchair? No, it's the environment's fault that it's not ramped. And if we take that same kind of shift and paradigm into schools, is it the dyslexic kids' fault that they aren't learning? No, it's the environment's fault for not making not reaching out to them in a way that helps them to learn best. And so for me, because you were in school 8 hours a day, and then you got homework, and like in third grade I had 3 hours of homework every night, and I would sit at the kitchen table with my mom, and she would write out, like, I would dictate to her what I wanted to say, and then I had to copy that. So it was a whole process in doing my homework. And sometimes you would just do it for me. And that was in part because the teacher didn't do an accommodation of maybe doing less work. And because, Catholic school in the 1980s, it was a lot of drill and kill, like do the 30 of these problems. Like, and how about you do 10 and it's quality over quantity. So because all day long, literally all day long, I was engaging in something that my self-esteem was not encouraged. Like, my self-esteem was dinged all day long. And so that took a lot on me. So that really impacted me in ways of depression and like things that I don't even want to talk about because I don't want to
Mm,
for anybody else out there. But I was a very depressed little kid, like 8, 9, 10 years old, 11 years old. Um, because the advocacy of my parents would happen every year. Then they, at first, I would get an accommodation and then they lost interest. And then around eighth grade, I started to act up a little bit. I spent most of the year in the bathroom because when a stuttering dyslexic has to read out loud, where are they going to go? They have to go to the bathroom. I do have a story of I kind of had it in the eighth grade. One of the accommodations was that I got to do every other problem. So easy ones, middle ones, hard ones. And so instead of 30, 15. And I went to my teacher in the eighth grade and I was like, what's my grade? And she's like, well, you've been doing half the work, so you are getting an F. I was like, no, 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 no. You don't understand. You're supposed to grade me on the 15, not on 30. And I was like, even if I got all of these right, I'd still have an F because it would be at 50 percent. And she's like, yeah, but you're getting an F. And so I was really angry at that. I was really mad. And mad is better than taking it out on myself.
mhm.
And so that was the year that I was in the bathroom, as I oftentimes was. And another kid from my class, who was my cousin as well, came in and she had the teacher's coffee cup. And she was supposed to get the teacher water. And I was like, hey, what if you just put a little bit of toilet water in the coffee? Just a teeny tiny bit. And she did. She dunked it in and then she filled the rest up with water from the tap. And I went back and I saw my eighth grade teacher drink toilet water. And I got to say, really empowered, really, really empowered. And I tell that story all the time so that people know if you're a teacher, if you work with kids, watch your coffee cups. That's the first one. And second, we need to empower kids to be heard because I tried to advocate and I wasn't heard. And also, we need to help them advocate in the better ways, but the environment needs to receive them for that advocacy. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. You know, a couple of things that really stuck out to me is, school is a child's work, and they don't really have a choice in that regard the way adults do. And you know, the lack of consistency, especially as it relates to accommodations in school, and the role that it played in really digging into your self-esteem. And last but not least, give it up to your mama for all the support and, being there with you at the homework table, sort of, helping you in that regard, right? So with that, you are a comedian. So help us understand your relationship to comedy as a kid. How did it start? What did it look like? Paint us a picture of that.
Yeah, well, if I wasn't crying over homework, I was watching TV. And for me, TV was a very accessible way to get information. And once you've watched all of the Flintstones, once you've watched all of the Beverly Hillbillies, you exhaust everything and then you just start to watch other things. And in my house, there wasn't a restriction on the things we watched. And my mom is a pretty big comedy fan. And so and she was a really big Richard Pryor fan, and still is. And when I was around, and every month my mom would let me play hooky from school, and we would go out to the movies. And when I was 9, she brought me to see Richard Pryor live at the Sunset Strip. So that's how I, learned a lot of words. Um, and also really good drug education. You want to teach your kids about drugs. Richard Pryor live at the Sunset Strip. That's where he gets the light and was like, "This is Richard Pryor running down when he lit himself on fire." So,
Can we find this on YouTube?
huh?
Can we find this on YouTube?
Oh, you can find it on Netflix and all, like
Oh,
it is his film that is classic. It's him in the red suit, I believe. And yeah, it still holds up in a lot of ways. Not everything, but in
yeah.
many ways.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay. So thank you for sharing that. Um, Now, what happened at age 11 as it relates to the role of comedy in your life? Because I know that was an important.
Yeah, and so all these years of watching comedy, and also I was a really big late night with David Letterman fan.
Mm,
The Saturday Night Live to a lesser extent, but still really important. Um, I decided I wanted to do stand up. It was a thing that I
yeah.
out. It was all of that. As I went into high school, I had a lit, and I still have the paper in a drawer over there. Um, I would write jokes. I would call up open mics. I would take notes on which of the open mics allowed minors, and my goal was to do stand up. When I was 17, it all ended because I was like, that's not going to happen. This is 1990. There's no stuttering people on TV doing stand up. I thought a prerequisite for doing stand up was that you had to be fluent, and fluency being not stutter. So dream died. Went on with my life. When I was 35, I attended a conference at the National Stuttering Association. And when I was there, I realized how much like space I relinquished up to other people. I think there's a thing when you stutter, and it, like as being an Italian American Catholic woman, like there's kind of an expectation to take care of others and to put other people first and not to insert yourself in a in certain things. And so that kind of translated into holding back and feeling guilty that people would have to sit through my stutter. And when I was there at the conference, I was around other women, and that's why it was so important to be with other women who stuttered, because I saw myself reflected there, and I was like, oh, I wouldn't want this for them. Why do I want it for me? And I came back from that conference totally changed, changed a few things in my life. And one of those was I started to stand up when I was 36, because I was like, okay, what's the thing that I always wanted to do? And I was like, oh, I'll take a class and I'll see how it goes. It's been 13 years since then. So kind of like it.
Wow. I want to revisit that, but before we get to that part, I want to cover something from a little bit before. We talked about how, you know, um, you killed your dreams at the age of 17, and it was as a result of you not really seeing how it would be possible as it relates to role models in comedy, right? But the conference, the stuttering conference that you attended at age 35, was not your first conference, right? Because you did attend one at age 18. Additionally, one of the things that came up in our conversation is how stuttering women are unicorns. I'm very curious for you to share more with the audience in this regard of what it was your experience like being a unicorn, especially as it relates to not having role models
Mhm.
earlier on in life, which led you to sacrifice your dream. But then also, once you were able to sort of, discover more of your world, still feeling like a minority.
Yeah. So what everyone should know first is that people who stutter are 1% of the world's population. Okay. And if there's four of us, three are going to be men, one's going to be a woman. So that's why we're a minority within a minority in that way. And that's why I also call us unicorns, because if we find each other, like, what are the odds? We are 1 in 400. So when we find each other, it's very, very special. And with that being said, all there, like, if there was a stuttering character, it was usually a guy. And also all of those images sucked anyway. Before the King speech and the movie Rockets Science, I can almost not name a good portrayal of a stutterer. Like I always say, the best one I had was Porky Pig, and it was a pig who didn't wear pants. like that was all we had. But for women, that it totally wasn't there. But like the first time I saw a woman on TV
Mhm.
talk about something that wasn't on stuttering, that was just on anything but stuttering, but they stuttered on it, was when I was on Good Day Sacramento. Like that was, it was very weird that like me, like I was the first woman I saw on TV talk and stutter, and it wasn't on stuttering. So that was weird.
Mhm.
Um so there's that. I forget what you asked me.
Basically, I think it would be great if we could pick up at your first experience at the conference at the age of 18.
Oh, right.
And
Yes,
yeah.
that's what you're
Mhm.
getting at. Okay. So the thing is, when I was 18, I volunteered at the conference. I didn't participate. And so I would check people in, and that was a great experience to hear people, because almost all of us stutter on our names. Like I've never met a stutterer who's like, oh yeah, I can say my name easy. It's like, no, it's totally not.
Really?
Oh yeah, all of us. Um, and it
Wow.
could be that like there's that pressure, because sometimes under pressure, like we're more conscious of our speech, and so, and also there's no way to get around it. So like you
Mhm.
got to say your name, unless you go to Starbucks and you lie about your name, which a lot of us do just to get it through. um
Mhm.
so, and whatever you got to do, all good. um and so at that conference, I was checking people in, all of that, and I didn't participate. Being one of the few women at that conference and being so young, just really overwhelmed by all of the male energy, and especially being a young woman, like I was like, some guys would kind of hit on me, and that's where,
Mhm.
like, I tell women when they go to the conference, I'd be ready, and I also tell the men, like, chill the fuck out. um because it has to go beyond that, and everybody has their own process in that. So yeah, so that's where I kind of felt like, oh, I got something out of this. I
Mhm.
understood it, and and I had some people who were role models, and they lived their life. None of them were comics, luckily for my parents, because I don't think they wanted me to go into comedy when I was 18. But yeah, so that, it was weird to go to that conference and then go to this other one where I really absorbed myself in it. I didn't, and I wasn't expecting the life change that
Mhm.
it would be. But the thing is, finding your community is so important, because that, like, being reflected back kind of shows you who you can be and who you're going to grow into, and it gives you those possibilities.
Yeah, thank you. So fast forwarding back to, sort of this second conference that you attended at age 35, you talked about how that was such a turning point, probably one of the bigger turning points in your life, where you sort of recognize the ways in which you are limiting yourselves in light of these other humans, these other women, um, and recognizing that you first had a responsibility to honor your own dreams,
Mhm.
right? And so as a result, you sort of dust the cobwebs off of your childhood dreams.
Oh, I love how you said that. Yes, that's totally it.
Well, thank you. Um, and you enrolled in a class at the San Francisco Comedy School or San Francisco Comedy College, right?
Yeah.
Um, Tell us about that experience. What was the class like? And then segue that, please, into your first stand-up experience.
So it was a class that you took for a few weeks, and the college also had open mics there at the school that were only for people who went to the school, and they would sucker in tourists to come, and you would perform to them, and so you had a real audience, which is great. So many open mics or other comics, so
Um,
that's why this was really great. And the first time I was like, okay, what am I gonna wear? I'm gonna what and I love clothes. And I was like, okay, what would a female comic wear? Like I'm gonna like that. And I had on ca- capri jeans and a
right.
shirt that I got at Ross that was just like this plain shirt. Um, and also wedge heels. Like I was like, okay, that looks like a comedian's outfit. And so on my way there, it's this is really embarrassing. Like I don't even want to talk about this. Like I'll talk about, like being depressed as a child. I don't want to say what I'm about to say. But on my way there, I listened almost on a loop to the Eminem song from 8 Mile, the one where he's like gonna do the battle.
Yeah,
So we can
that's nothing to be embarrassed about. Eminem would be honored to hear this, and there's a lot of Eminem fans out there, so
yeah, yeah.
kudos.
Mhm. Yeah, but I guess, like, the idea of somebody from, who had the odds against him and
Yeah.
the thing that they love, all of that. Um so yeah, and then I went, and I don't remember that night exactly. I do have a video of it somewhere. I don't know where though. But I remember that first couple weeks that I started. I remember a woman in the audience la- laughing at my jokes, and a lot of my jokes, especially up front, are on stuttering because I'm trying to acclimate the
Uh,
audience. Just put it out there, and that's like one of the rules in comedy is if there's something obvious, you talk about it first, get it out of the way, and then you can move on or talk about it more or come back to it, whatever.
yeah.
Um and so there was a woman who laughed, and I was like, oh, do you stutter? And she's like, no, you're just funny. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, it's this thing that impacts 1% of the population
Mm,
can also be related by the other 99%. So that
right.
was one of the big things at that time that I learned.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, since that conference at the age of 35, Have you been to any subsequent conferences and have you done stand-up?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I've gotten to keynote in Iceland and in Canada at their conferences. And the Iceland one was an international conference with people from all over the world. So that was amazing. And it was such a big deal that the president of Iceland opened it up the first night. Like that's could you I mean Biden has been to a stuttering conference where he was a keynote, but that was way back in like the 90s.
Yeah.
But like to have the president in there, it's so cool. So I've done keynotes, but also I've done shows too. And we did a comedy show because I'm not the only stuttering stand-up comic. I'm the only female stuttering stand-up comic in the Bay. There are a couple other people that are dudes, of course, because 4-to-1.
Mhm.
Also, comedy has pretty much the same gender ratio as stuttering. So, it just
Yes.
get less and less and less and less and less. But there are some really great comics. Jody Fuller being one of those. And Jody, when I first was like, okay, maybe I'll do stand up. Is there a stuttering stand up comic? And Jody Fuller, who I'm now friends with, was one of those people. Like he was the guy. He was the only person I found online in 2010. And he still performs now. And so I think for that show, I got to perform with him and Jason, who's in DC. And there's a thing when you perform to your own people that they get it. Like they laugh at my premises before my punchline because they just get it. And they know how absurd our lives can be. Like one of the things I really love is absurdity in comedy. And when you stutter, absurdity happens constantly. And so to perform for that audience was, I mean, it was an honor, but also so much fun.
So, can you illustrate absurdity through a story for our audience?
Sure. So one example I was just talking about this the other day. Um, so so I have two. One is
Yeah,
more extreme than the other. Although I was more offended
do
by
it.
the extreme one, and people will hear a sexual thing in a minute. Okay, here we go. So, once at a library, I did a presentation at a library on adaptive technology because there are technologies that can help someone with dyslexia read. And I was doing a presentation on all those things that could help. And an older woman afterwards comes up to me. I was like, oh, she's going to tell me about her grandkid and how this is going to help them. And I was like, oh, because, you get buzzed off of a good presentation. And she comes up to me and she's like, you are such an inspiration. If I talked like you, I wouldn't talk at all. And I was like, not really a compliment. Not really a compliment. That is not the only time that I've heard something to that effect. See the absurdity.
Complete ignorant absurdity.
Yes. Okay, so here's the other one.
Yeah.
And I've had many weird things said to me. This was among them, but my response was so good. Okay.
Bless you.
So, okay. Well, actually, I'll do two. And I'll.
Yes, please. We got time. So.
Okay. So another one was my first month or so in comedy. I was introducing myself to other comics. This one guy, super nice guy. I'm friends with him now. He's wonderful. He's great. He wasn't in this moment. And so he asked my name and I said, Nina, just like that. And he said, is that Nina with 5 N's? Not knowing I stutter. And I was like, no, that is Nina with two N's. And I did this. So that's the nice thing about comedy, is that you can respond. If somebody's an asshole, you can respond at like 10, you can respond on 10. It's that woman. I couldn't have done this to that woman. I couldn't have. And now he gave me one of my best lines in my act. People love that line so much. And thank you for giving it to me, whomever that is. And he knows, because I tell him all the time. If you say something to me, I will remind you constantly about it for our entire life. And that is your penance. So the other one, so this was interesting, because usually after I do comedy, people feel that they can come up to me and just say stuff. And you being a comic, people are like, oh, I can say whatever I want because it's all a joke. It's like, it's not. So this guy comes up to me, and so I did not perform. I was at a comedy club seeing my friend Mean Dave, but I did not perform. I was not under the guise of comedy. This was just under the guise of being a woman around a drunk dude. And so this drunk dude who was in the audience at the show, I'm talking to him outside, and I stutter, and I'm like, yeah, so I'm a stuttering comic and blah, blah, blah. And then he's there and he's thinking, and he's like, huh? And he's like, do you stutter when you orgasm? That's what he asked me. And my follow-up, which is so good, was, which lips are you talking about? Again,
I love it.
Yes.
Yo, I have a feeling, I hope you've shared that on stage, because is genius.
Again, as a stuttering comic, sometimes I don't have to write. I just report out. I never sit down and say, okay, I'm going to write my stuttering jokes down. No, I just, shit happens and I talk about it.
Yeah, that's such a blessing. Wow. So, one of the things that came up in our conversation is that as a result of your stand-up experience, as well as sort of what you were inspired by. One of the things that was really powerful is when you told me that you're always a disability advocate first, and comedian after that. And as an immigrant myself, I know that as much as you struggled in this country growing up, and as far as resources go, there's a world of a difference between being a stutterer in the U.S. or a stammerer in India, right? So could you help enlighten us a bit in regards to, now that you are an international advocate, having met stutterers/stammerers from other parts of the country, world, low income, middle income, what that experience has been like, and what you would like to impart upon us global audience in this regard to help improve?
I think the most important thing to me is that there is a community of people who stutter, and there is a stuttering group in India. It's the Indian Stammering Association, and they do wonderful work. And I have worked with them. I've done podcasts. I've done interviews. So they are amazing. And also India is really big on stand up now. So I suspect there's going to be some Indian stand up comics coming up. And then, and I think it impacts people around the world in different ways. But I think the one thing that is very common among us is that it's not like there's any culture that's like, oh, yes, stuttering is awesome and great. And they are just part of our world. And we're just not going to interrupt them. We're not going to discriminate against. No, America does it. England does it. Like everywhere around the world, the one commonality is that stutterers learn that they are less than and they are discriminated against. They're done, and that's done in the employment world. It's done in relationships. You know, I've had friends who have had a hard time dating in America, in India, like just around the world. It's an issue, and I'm sure it impacts people in different ways, but it's just part of that. And so I think finding community is really important. And there's lots of community to be found now that we're online. Back before online, you really had to search it out, but type in your country, type in stuttering or stammering, and stammering is what they say in the UK. Like in America, people are like, oh, well, they're more of a stammerer instead of a stutterer. Like it's better to be a stammerer, like it's more fancy. No, it's just what the UK people say. You can tell I get irritated. Yeah. And so,
it's still funny.
And so the community is the thing that has brought me to the places that I've been. And we have to go and we have to find each other. And there are lots of organizations that are doing that. And actually, I have a list of those, which I will send you.
Yes.
People can start there.
Hell yeah. So before we sort of end today's episode, this is usually something that I ask at the beginning of the episode, and I completely missed, but I think it might be great to sort of end on this note is, can you share with us the story of how you and I met?
Yes. Let's see. Well, it was, and I I want you to tell it too. So I'm just going to introduce it and then
Sure.
say more.
Sure.
I was headlining at Critical Hit, which is It's Your Move Games, I think, which is Hayden's show it's in Temescal in Oakland. Great show. It's just a little teeny tiny show in a
Yep.
store or in like a comic book game store. It's like some nights they have Dungeons and Dragons, other nights they have this show. And so I performed. I was headlining on that night. I had just come back from my high school reunion, so I was kind of revved up, and I'm like,
You even cracked a joke from that. I remember.
yeah. And so, so that's where we met. And what do you want to add?
Well, shout out to Hayden and Critical Hit Comedy. If you're ever in the Oakland, California area and it happens to be a Saturday, please make the time. It's an amazing lineup and tickets are $10. It's like a no-brainer. If you're into comedy, you gotta go to that show and say hi to Hayden. And they even have like raffles and giveaways. So it's like you could make more back than what you spent on your ticket. So like go. But yeah, Nina headlined, and I'd never experienced a stuttering comedian, let alone a woman stuttering comedian. And there was immediately this like the creative whatever, the one who's like, oh my god, this could be an episode, came on. It was like, this would be so amazing. She's such a cool human. And like one of the things that really stuck out to me was how at the end of your show you made it a point well, one of the things that stuck out to me, besides how funny you were, was how you were using your stage. You had an agenda, to advocate for disability, and you went so far as to offer whoever was a stutterer or was close to a stutterer, that you would give a copy of your book for free to them. you know that really stuck with me. And so I had to come over after the show and introduce myself, and I believe that was back in August or September.
Yeah, I think it was September, because October I don't do anything. Otherwise, this would have happened way sooner.
Yeah.
In October, it's the Disability Awareness Month and International Stuttering Awareness Day on the 22nd. So that is like, I'm always super busy then, because a lot of celebration goes on.
Hell yeah. So, that just goes to highlight, if Hayden hadn't stepped out of his comfort zone and like dedicated himself to, putting on this weekly show, right? Shout out Hayden, Critical Hit Comedy. That would not have created the stage for Nina and me to come together. And then obviously, for me to find it within myself, and then for Nina to be open, because she's done a ton of interviews, right? I mean, like, she's a international speaker. And so grateful for her to, open up her heart, open up her time, to allow this to happen, 4 months, however months after the fact. So, so grateful for you, Nina. Any last words before we wrap up?
Let's see. People can connect with me. I'm at ninagcomedian.com. In 2023, my album is going to come out, and that should be available internationally. And also, since we last talked, I'm also going to be filming a comedy special, and the director is Gina Chin Davis. She also stutters, so it's great to have it being directed by a woman who stutters. So it's going to be a unicorn project all around.
Congratulations. And I feel like this might be the first public forum where you're sort of sharing this news. So what an honor it is. Please, once that goes live, I'd love to add a link, so that 3 years from now, if somebody is watching this episode, they'll be able to link to your comedy special, because I think that's big news, and worth celebrating. So thank you so much. I will be adding whatever information you share with me in the episode description. With that, I want to take a moment to thank our audience. Without you, we would not exist. And until the next episode, love and light to you all, and don't forget to step out of your comfort zone. All right. Thank you, Nina.
Thank you, Lion. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Get Out of Your Comfort Zone series. I hope it moved you and inspired you if you are feeling stuck with something in your life. If you would like to further connect with our guest, please see their contact in the description. Please consider taking a moment to rate this podcast. Please also consider showing us some love on your Instagram story. You can find our info in the episode description. Until the next episode, I wish you infinite love and light. Thank you so much for tuning in.